So hi, my name's Christine Newitt. I head up the VAT team at Duncan & Topless. We're a team of 9 people, so we've been growing over the years and give lots of advice regarding VAT. But today, VAT has a very special birthday on the 1st of April. It is 50 years old. So slightly younger than me, but I can assure you I was not doing VAT advising on it anyway back in 1973. So I've got this box in front of me which the team here have put. Apparently it's quite a popular video sensation online, but it's not something I've heard of, and I think they're going to be putting items in there and I've got to guess what they are, and hopefully that will prompt me to tell you something about a case that has gone through the courts concerning VAT over the last 50 years, and there are a lot of them. No idea what these are. Well, they're not, I thought they were pens for a minute, but they're not pens, are they? So I've got a nib on. Got like there's more in there. Ah, I know. Oh, managing director won't be impressed. I don't know what these are. This is his favourite sport. They're golf clubs. Yes, another story on VAT where golf clubs are concerned. So there was a case, going back probably 20 years, particularly refers to golf membership clubs, which there are quite a lot in Lincolnshire, and the charging of VAT on green fees. Now, if you're a member of a golf club, there's a certain exemption from VAT, which means that you don't need to pay VAT on your club membership, and you can go and play as many rounds of golf as you like if you like that sort of sport. I think it spoils a good walk, if I'm honest, but there you go. So the case that went through the courts was called the Bridport case, and eventually the taxpayers won that the green fees that they charge, which could be for anybody coming into the club, so it could be a guest member or just generally non-members coming in wanting to play golf at the club. And they won their case to say that those fees were also exempt, not standard rated. So that ended up with quite a big claim for a lot of golf membership clubs. The revenue didn't want to give in though without a fight, so they then said, well, what about unjust enrichment? Because the people that have come in have paid this extra 20% VAT, so therefore if we give that VAT back to you, you need to give it back to your customers. Well, you can imagine that was never going to happen because you'd never be able to trace all those individuals. Golf clubs don't keep those sorts of detailed records, so that wasn't practical. So the golf clubs then had to go through a whole exercise of saying, well, actually, we didn't charge anymore, and so the VAT is a cost that we've suffered. And in the main, they won that argument. I think they ended up with about 90% of the VAT that they'd paid coming back. So that was a success for a lot of our client golf clubs. Let's see what's in. Oh, well, it's on a plate. That generally means it's food. We do love food in VAT. Oh yes, I know what these are. This is probably one of the first cases. These are Jaffa cakes, aren't they? This is probably one of the first VAT cases. Now, it was accepted in 1973 when VAT came in that Jaffa cakes were a food that was 0 rated. In 1991, so almost 20 years we've had VAT by this point, HMRC, Inland Revenue, Customs and Excise as it was back then, decided that they were going to review whether Jaffa cakes were in fact a cake. So then that led to quite a debate over what constituted a cake. And the reason that they needed to have this debate is although food is 0 rated for VAT, and you'd think you'd recognise food, it was only ever intended for items that were basic food items, not what they called luxury food items. So you'll find within the VAT legislation that, okay, food is 0 rated generally, but then there are loads of exceptions to that rule. And one of those exceptions is confectionery. And within that particular item in the legislation, it says that yes, confectionery is not zero rated, that would be standard rated, as would ice creams, apparently they're luxury, and ice roll is, but not cakes and biscuits, unless it is a biscuit, and very specifically a biscuit, and it is covered, either fully covered or partly covered in chocolate, because chocolate is where the confectionery comes in. But that's only for biscuits. So the whole debate started, is a Jaffa cake a cake or is it a biscuit? And you would not believe the amount of discussion that's been had over this over the years. But the upshot was that a Jaffa cake is in fact a cake and therefore remained zero rated. There's been a few following that. There's been snowballs and Tunnocks tea cakes. And it depends on how those products are made and what they look like and what they taste like. But I think really the ruling thing about a cake or a biscuit is that generally a cake will go stale and a biscuit will go soft. So that sort of is mainly the benchmark of the test. But apart from Jaffa cakes, Tunnock tea cakes, they're also zero rated. But the Swedish marshmallowy type things that I think are classed as snowballs, they're not. It does very much depend on how the product's made. So yes, a long history of food and VAT. Oh, there's another one in here. Oh, this feels like a child's toy. It's not one of those like whack-a-mole type games, is it? Well, there's certainly a lot I can say on VAT about gaming machines. So perhaps I'll stick with that. It's a gaming machine. So gaming machines and VAT, cracky, that's sort of a long history. You go right back to the 1970s when pre-digital, when people used to do the spot the ball competitions in the newspaper. Those that are old enough that are watching this might recognise the spot the ball competition. And it's around whether it's a game of chance or a game of skill. And that was a case that ran a long time through the courts. I think eventually, I think Littlewood started the claim, and then it was 2016 when the company had been taken over several times that the case was won. And they ended up getting back £97 million in VAT, that particular company. But during this whole time, the fact that gaming and betting is exempt from VAT has been challenged through the courts on numerous occasions. And the upshot of some of those cases has been, well, it depends on the type of gaming machine, whether it is a game of chance, whether it's a game of skill, what the stakes are, whether you can win prize money. And after losing several cases on gaming machines, and this is sometimes what the Revenue do, they changed the rules and said, well, actually, we've lost some of these, and okay, you've got some back claims, some of those are still going through at the moment, particularly the Rank claims, because Rank, the big casino operator, they put in quite a substantial claim, and there's a lot of the smaller casinos on the amusement arcades, even pubs that have just got these machines in their bars, put claims in on the back of the Rank litigation. So there was a lot came through, but in 2013 the Revenue said, well, have enough, we're going to change the rules. So I suppose they could. I mean, it is only a game at the end of the day, isn't it? So you can change the rules if you want to. And they changed the rules and said, right, everything's exempt. And we're going to bring in a new tax called machine gaming duty. And that will apply to any games machines that are in a certain category where you can win a cash prize. If it's not a cash prize, then it won't be subject to machine games duty. So your things like, I don't think this is one of them, but you know, those cranes that come down and pick teddies up and things like that, they wouldn't come under it because you're just winning a thing. The machines, but actually, story there, the little coin drop machines. I don't know if you've ever taken your children to those amusement arcades where they have like the pushers that push the coins out. When you put coins in, they push the coins out. You've got chances of winning coins, but they've now started putting like little gifts on the end, so little really trashy things in my view, but they're little tiny gifts that children like a lot. But because you can win cash, then it will be subject to this machine games duty. So that's had a long, gaming machines have had a very torrid journey through the VAT legislation over the years. Right, we'll put another one in here. Right, what's this one? Oh, another one on a plate. Oh, I do like talking about food. Oh yes, this is a pasty. Cornish pasty. Yes, a very cold Cornish pasty, and that is quite significant from a VAT perspective as to whether it's hot or cold. So just a little bit more of a lesson on zero rating for VAT on food items. There's also a distinction to be made over whether something is food that's just being sold for resale or whether it's catering. Now, I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that that pasty is cold. I'm sure it's only just been taken out of its packet. So if you bought that from a shop, it would be zero rated. But what about if you say went into Greggs and it had just come out the oven and it was all lovely and warm and you thought, oh, I fancy that for my lunch, and then you bought it as a hot takeout and took it out the restaurant to consume it? Well, that would be standard rated because that's hot takeaway food. So it's the same item, it's just that it's now being heated up. So that's how pedantic it can get in terms of whether something is food or catering. The debate even went down to a bakery that had just taken bread out of the oven and it's cooling down. Well, if you buy it at the point it's hot, does that mean it's hot food takeaway? Well, apparently it didn't. So the whole pasty debate was if you're buying something that has just been freshly baked and it has been displayed in a hot, what do they call them? Those little ovens that keep the things hot anyway on the shelf, or rotisseries in supermarkets if you've ever bought chickens that way, then they are hot food that's intended to be sold hot. But if the food is being left to cool down and you're just buying it as a cold item of food to take out and consume later, then that would still be zero rated. Otherwise it would be standard rated. So, as I said earlier, a long history with food and VAT. It feels like a plant pot. Is it a particular sort of plant? Is that a berry or something, like a fruit or... fruit bushes. Fruit bushes. Now, there's a story about fruit bushes where VAT is concerned. It's actually a case that I was involved in as well. So just to give you a little background on VAT, there's two particular schedules in the legislation that have created a lot of controversy over the last 50 years, from 1973 through to 2023. And one of them is the zero rating for food. Now, you might not think, well, a fruit bush isn't food, it's plant, isn't it? But it does extend to farmers that are growing fruit, which they then sell on to customers. So that's all zero rated for VAT, not standard rated. But then what about if you sold those bushes to the general public? So often when you go in the supermarket, you might find fruit shrubs and fruit trees that are for retail, or if you go into the garden centres, you might find some there for retail as well. So would you zero rate those fruit bushes? Well, it depends, which it does a lot with VAT. it depends on whether that fruit is normally grown in the UK. So if you are buying a raspberry bush, then that's quite commonly grown in the UK to produce fruit. The argument I got involved in with the revenue was over things like goji berries and chokeberries and aronia berries, all these superfoods that are coming onto the market. And we had a long old tussle with the revenue, and eventually they agreed that they could be zero rated after probably about 4 or 5 years of arguing whether they should be or not. So this obviously made quite a big difference to the business involved, because it means it didn't have to charge VAT, which is 20% is quite a big amount on the price. So thanks everyone for watching. I've really enjoyed playing the Guess What's in the Box game. If anyone does want any VAT advice, whether it be on the subject of food or indeed any other subject, then please go to our website. We have a team of 9, we're quite a big team now, so we'll always be at hand to give you any advice you require. Thank you.